Russia is vowing to capture Bakhmut, but Ukrainians aren't making it any easy. However, acute shortage of ammunition on both sides has worsened the situation on the ground. This is how the eastern Ukrainian city looks like after being pummeled by artillery over the last 7 months. A city once bustling with a population of over 70,000 people is now razed to an ugly battleground. Russia wants the city at all costs. Moscow says Bakhmut will be a stepping stone for its forces on the Ukrainian offensive.
The liberation of Bakhmut continues. The city is an important hub for defending Ukrainian troops in the Donbas, and taking it under control will allow further offensive actions to be conducted deep into Ukraine's defensive lines.
Ukraine and now even the United States have been downplaying the strategic significance of the town. The Pentagon says the victory in Bakhmut won't mean that Russia has turned the tide in the war, but Ukrainian forces are nonetheless defending the town till the last man. Even Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky publicly committed his troops to holding out in Bakhmut. This comes days after a Ukrainian withdrawal seemed likely.
This is the first border guard unit. The situation in the city is difficult. The enemy actively storms our positions. However, they don't have any success and suffer colossal losses. Probably out of spite, they try to blow up 2 bridges.
Місто стоїть, бо Бахмут – це Україна.
It seems ammunition shortages delayed a Russian win in Bakhmut, but even amid reports of shortages, Western analysts say Russian troops continue to advance through brutal close quarters fighting. Ukraine desperately wants to capitalize on Russian weaknesses, but it's Kiev that has shortfalls of its own. From artillery, ammunition shortages to increasingly contested lines of communication to an expensive battle in unfavorable terrain. This fight, experts say, doesn't play to Ukraine's advantage. The head of the Wagner Group, the private army which is leading the fight in Bakhmut along with regular Russian troops, says Russia's positions in the area could be in jeopardy if the supply issues are not resolved. Bakhmut is currently surrounded on 3 sides. Ukrainian positions in the east have been worn down by an intensified Russian assault over the winter. Both sides are facing challenges in supplying frontline troops across Ukraine's vast countryside, but Ukraine's armed forces say they continue to hold out. This seems true, at least for now. For more on this story, we're now joined by Ron Aledo from Miami in Florida. He's a former CIA analyst and former U.S. military officer. Thank you so much for speaking to WION. Now, after Kiev, there are reports that Russian troops in Bakhmut are facing shortage of ammunition. How do you think this could impact the situation on the ground? Also, do you believe, as has been pointed out by many analysts, that Bakhmut may actually be very close to falling to the Russians?
Yes, there is no doubt that Bakhmut is about to fall. It's receiving an insane high number of artillery rounds per day. It's surrounded in 3 areas, and the only lines of communication that Bakhmut has right now, that the Ukrainians have, are under constant artillery fire. So yes, most likely during the next 3 days or so, Bakhmut is going to fall. And it's very important because Bakhmut is one fortified city that has been extremely fortified for the last years. And after Bakhmut, the only other fortified area is Kramatorsk to the west of Bakhmut. And after Kramatorsk, there is nothing. After Kramatorsk and Severodonetsk, there are no more fortified cities and areas. So that means that the Russians can take a very large chunk of terrain on the Donbas, on eastern Ukraine. I don't really think that the Russians are falling short of ammunition. Perhaps now the Wagner Group is being replaced by more professional, more elite soldiers, and there is a rotation right now currently going on. Spetsnaz, special forces, and regular army units are being replaced by the Wagner. but I don't think that the Russians are running out of ammunition. Artillery and ammunition is one of the strength core of the Russian military.
Let me ask you this. There are many in the United States, including the Pentagon and the U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, who've been claiming that the fall of Bakhmut, if it does happen, will really not be such a big deal. The town doesn't have great strategic significance. It has more symbolic importance for Russia and its PR campaign, really. But would that not really be an underestimation of how Russia and its forces are progressing in this particular town?
Well, obviously, it's an underestimation. The United States government and the Pentagon, the State Department, they always try to follow or mimic whatever the Ukrainian government is trying to say. And the Ukrainian government right now is trying to raise the morale of their soldiers, especially of the young recruits on Western Ukraine. We are winning, the Russians are losing, the Russians are inept, the Russians are not doing it right, we have the upper hand, etc. They are trying to raise the morale of the troops. This is very similar of what they did at the beginning with the Ghost of Kiev that later on was debunked as a video game. So they're trying to use these propaganda games, and the United States government trying to mimic that because they don't want the morale of the Ukrainian army to fall. But Bakhmut is very important, actually, not only because it demonstrates that the Ukrainians lack offensive capability, also because, as I say, it's a fortified city that has been extremely fortified for the last years. And if that falls, then the Ukrainian army only have one more fortified city, an area that is Severodonetsk and Kramatorsk. And after that, there is nothing else. And also because it's inflicting a lot of casualties in the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians are receiving 5 times, 6 times the artillery rounds that they can deliver on the Russians. For every round of artillery that they can launch in the Russians, they are receiving like 5 to 6 times. Experts say that right now the total casualties of Ukrainian military is over 150,000, perhaps as far as 170,000 total, but the Ukrainian government wants to keep silence on that. They don't want to mention their casualties. It's like a top secret. They don't want to affect the morale of the troops. But Bakhmut is very important for all the reasons. Not only symbolic, it's symbolic, of course, but it's also a real target that after that, they only leave Ukraine with one more fortified line in Kramatorsk. And after that, the Russians will have free access to hundreds of kilometers of square kilometers in the eastern Ukraine area.
Well, you have spoken quite candidly. You believe that Bakhmut's fall would be significant, and therefore to call it a Pyrrhic victory for the Russians would certainly not be factually correct. Ron Aledo, thank you for speaking to WION.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.